All right, joining me today is Andy Hazelton from the Hurricane Research Division and part of NOAA and also part of the University of Miami. And Andy is a modeler. And Andy, I'm just going to get right to it. What is a hurricane modeler?
So basically, we develop mathematical models, computer models that solve equations of motion to predict, where a hurricane's going to go, how strong it's going to be. There's all different kinds of weather models that solve, all the different equations, and you can use them for different purposes, to predict regular weather fronts. But what I specifically work on is developing a hurricane model called HAFS, or the Hurricane Analysis and Forecast System, which is a model we're developing at NOAA, and we're part of at HRD. We're part of that specifically focuses on the area around the hurricane with some model physics and special math that's specifically designed for hurricanes to accurately predict the storm structure, where it's going to go, things like that, out to 5 days. Some models go out to 7 days. We're providing, and then we provide that information to both the public and the Hurricane Center to help inform their forecasts.
Now, one of the things that you do, which I think is kind of cool, is models obviously rely on a lot of data, but you even fly on the hurricane hunters from time to time to help gather the data that goes into your model. You are literally feeding your model information, no?
That's correct. Yeah, because the P3 data from the NOAA P3 flights, they have a radar, a Doppler radar on the tail of the plane. So as it flies through, it's spinning and collecting that data. There's the drop sons, little tubes with parachutes that drop in, and even just the flight level data, the wind and temperature from along the plane's track, all that gets fed into the model to give it sort of a starting point. We call it that data assimilation, or initialization, where, starting point, and then the equations go forward from there. The old saying is garbage in, garbage out. So if the starting point, if the initialization is bad, you're going to have a bad forecast. And so that's one of the things with the planes that we try to do is get better data, get more data in there so that the model can do its best.
Right. And how is the HAFS model performing this year? Big learning curve, or what do you think?
It's been, pretty good in some cases, not as good in others. Like, for example, with Ian, we early on, kind of when it was first forming, we had a track bias where, we were further left, kind of out over the Gulf. GFS, some of the more commonly known models had that problem. But then once the storm was a little bit, just south of Cuba, a little bit further, our forecast was actually pretty good. It was, showing landfall near or south of Tampa. And one of the things that our model got right about that storm was showing the intensification as it approached the coast. I remember the night before, I had just gotten done flying the last mission I did when it was just west of the Keys. And I looked at HAFS and I was like, it's showing a category 5. I hope this is just wrong. I hope it's just overdoing it. And it turns out it really wasn't overdoing it by much. It got just shy of category 5. So, we're in the process of, whenever every season, after every storm, we diagnose, okay, what went right and why was it right? What went wrong? Why was it wrong? And to get better. So that's, what we're starting now, and we'll do a lot more of after the season.
All right. And do you think the models will ever replace human forecasters? I mean, is it going to get that good someday?
I don't know if that's really ever going to be the case. I mean, I hate to say never because, it's, the science is amazing, but I think, there's always going to be biases. There's always going to be issues in the models, and you're always going to need that human sort of adjustment in order to sort of correct for that. And, like, for example, the Hurricane Center, they use what's called these consensus models, which is like an average of a lot of models. But if you read their discussions, they don't always just blindly follow consensus. They adjust for, kind of which way the storm's trending and what they're observing. So you kind of always need that forecaster element to provide sort of that skill of knowing what the biases are and how to account for that.
Right. Any last thoughts on this year's hurricane season or on the models?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting hurricane season. We kind of had a quieter than expected start, and then sort of just this flurry of activity in September. We'll see. It seems to be quieting down again for now. We'll see if that continues or if we get another, late season burst. It's hard to say. But certainly I think it kind of goes to show it only takes one or maybe two if you count Fiona, because Fiona pretty severely impacted Puerto Rico and Canada, and then certainly Ian in Florida. So, even the generally quieter than expected season could still have some pretty big impacts, in certain places. So.
Right. All right, Andy Hazelton from, and you have a long title there. I typed it in and I almost ran out of room. But Andy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.